Good morning, everybody. I'd like to call the meeting to order. And I think since maybe we haven't all met, we could start by introducing ourselves. Do you want to start, Mayor, there? And we'll just go around the table with the people that are here in person, and then we'll go to the people that are online.
I'm Richard Latham, Mayor of West Elgin.
Don McCollum, Southwest Middlesex Councillor.
I'm Robin Greenall, CAO for West Elgin.
Mark McGill, Councillor, Southwest Middlesex.
Good morning. I'm Terry Toshchuk. I'm the Manager of Community Services and Clerk for West Elgin.
Oh, and then,
Online.
yeah, the online people.
Bill?
That,
Good morning, Philip Sousa, Councillor, Ward 3, West Elgin.
and then Clyde, maybe?
Yeah, it's Clyde Harris, Councillor of Village of Newbury.
And is that Linda?
Yeah. Hi, Linda Dunn, Coordinator for Community Support Services at Four Counties.
So is that everybody? I think so.
I think Amanda's on, ADP Coordinator. Amanda? There she is.
Oh, I don't know if I did that right.
We can hear you.
You can hear me? I can't see myself, so I don't know if I have this set up right, but
Amanda, you need to accept the promote to panelist. There you go.
there we go. I'm Amanda Starling, and I'm the ADP coordinator at Four Counties Health Services. I don't know what's happening. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
we can hear you.
Okay, so I don't know what's going on with my camera. I have it turned on. Maybe I don't. I don't know.
So
I'm sorry.
Maybe sorting through some of that. Then we would also have John Wright, who's a representative from Chatham-Kent, who's not with us today. Is that correct, Terry?
Yes, that is correct.
And then we would also have a representative from
the West Elgin Community Health Center. We have Jenna Denies.
Yeah,
and then Jan Metcalf from Chatham-Kent also joins us as a staff representative from Chatham-Kent.
Okay.
So, thanks, everybody. Could we go on then to adoption of the agenda as presented? Would somebody like to move? Moved by Richard Latham that we adopt the agenda. Seconder, Philip. Any discussion on that? Okay, those in favor of adopting the agenda? And it looks like we all are. That's carried then. Is no disclosure of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, we will go on to the minutes of the July 21st meeting, which you all will have had a chance to look at. Any comments on those minutes? Does somebody want to make a motion? We approve the July 21st minutes? Moved by Don McCollum, seconded by Clyde. Those in favor? Carried. Any business arising from the minutes? Seeing none, I guess we'll move on to the reports. And I'll turn that over to Robin, I guess.
I'm going to look at what report we're talking about first here.
This one up there is just the ridership.
Just for the ridership. So for our committee members, we have been tracking, as we continuously do, the ridership for the Four Counties transit system. What I have not done, and for those, West Elgin's had some significant staffing changes over this last year. And so it would speak to why we've had a bit of a pause within this meeting. So Terry and I have just recently been trying to sort of dig into sort of the information, as we were talking previously with Mark about the terms of reference and the information. And so we do know that we have been calculating and tracking usership, which determines sort of the weight, where residents are coming from, and utilizing the services, which helps us to support our budget. What I have not done, which I'd like to be able to dig into, is to try and do some assessment of use over the last few years. And so perhaps at the beginning of for the next meeting, we could bring back some assessment of usership, meaning the overall use of the bus, whether we see that trending up or trending down, or looking at the trends of use between municipalities where we feel our riders are coming from. And then determine how that information may be helpful to us going forward. Though, as we can see right now, we've noted, Chatham-Kent over this last year has had, which you'll see more in the financial documents, has had more of a reduction of ridership this last year, but we've seen an increase in the usage from Southwest Middlesex. So these are our usage reports up until November of 2026. 2025, it says 20, oh, I just say 5. Yeah, I got 26 on the brain with the budget.
So does anybody have any comments on the ridership? Somebody want to move that we receive the ridership statistics dated November 30th for information purposes? Moved by Don McCollum, seconded by Philip. Those in favor? Seeing they're all in favor, that's carried. Now we move on to budget discussion, and I think all the budget information is
Same
in a
as-
different email.
So an email was sent out to the committee, I believe on Tuesday evening?
Maybe yesterday even. Well,
That was Tuesday evening.
Tuesday, okay.
I need to pull my documents up as well.
I'm trying, I've looked at it. I'm trying to get it up in front of me. I can't find the attachment now.
It came from Terry.
There, I'll go,
Is everyone fine with the documents?
found it.
Good. So this budget does not have any sort of significant changes. From 2025 to the 2026, some slight amendments based on what we saw, based on sort of costing and usage. I am recommending we maintain the wages at sort of the 2025 level. And one of the reasons for this is wage increases. And my concern is that we are not utilizing the vehicle to the fullness. I do know when I'm putting in our staffing hours, that there are still occasional days of which we do not have the bus operating, and occasional portions of days. So I don't want to go to the full extent of what wages would be if we were running 80 hours a week, because that's not what we've seen the trend to be. However, I do want to account for adjustment to staffing wages at this time. I think the other item to note that I see Magda had brought forward to this group was within our fuel. We have changed over the fuel from our drivers using independent gas stations to using the fuel tank at the West Elgin sort of depot, which is at a much cheaper cost. And so that is sort of affecting the rate and cost. We are in the process right now, making sure we have sorted those invoices out and making sure that they will all be accounted for by the end of the year when we do year end. Because right now, I think our manager didn't recognize some of those fuel costs were for the four counties transit. So there may be a slight adjustment. And so otherwise, our recommendation is to keep the budget at the relatively same level as 2025, unless this committee had special projects of which they'd like us to consider. That is our recommendation. Also with this budget, I sent you a draft allocation, and that is based on usership. And so if my understanding is correct, that the next year's budget and allocation of cost is sort of proportionate to the users of the previous year, by users of the previous year. Is that correct? Okay, so what we have seen though is that then in 2025, we saw a change from usership from Chatham-Kent from 18% down to 4%. That increased, slight increase for Newbury and Southwest Middlesex, and then a significant increase then again for West Elgin. And that was just the number of riders and where those riders are addressing from. Below that is the transit reserve. And so this reserve is just sort of forecasting what is in the reserve and then what this board or committee has allocated would be annually placed into the reserve. So there's $10,000. And so that's showing the annual growth of that reserve. Below that, we show sort of capital forecasting, which would be the replacement of your, of the bus. I did have some questions because in our research, we noted that that bus was purchased in 2023. And then the forecasting is for a 6-year replacement. And so I'm not too sure 6 years is where we want. We know that the bus drives about 21,000 kilometers per year. And yeah, I was anticipating it to be more. And so we are sort of basing that on when we go for our annual licensing, when we're looking at the speedometer rates. The bus that it replaced was at 400,000 kilometers. So I guess I wouldn't be advising to any municipality or this committee that we hold that bus until 400,000 kilometers. But I'm not too sure that a 6-year replacement is realistic either. So we are going to do a little bit of research to sort of find when the best return on investment would be. And so how long we should hold it, averaging at what sort of kilometers on the speedometer, knowing we would get the best return on resale. And I'm thinking it's probably going to be pushing it out closer to the 10-year mark than a replacement at 6. But we will come back, we think, within the next year to this committee and have some of those conversations about maybe best placement for the vehicle. And certainly watching it to make sure if we see increase in usage, then we adjust accordingly. However, as this committee does note, the funding that is in the reserve, so what we are saving for, will not match the cost of the vehicle if we were to replace it in 2029. My concern is if we push the vehicle out to the 10-year mark or somewhere between 6 and 10 years, that the 150 is not going to be sufficient or a realistic number for a replacement. I'm not sure how inflation is going to impact cars over a 10-year span, so we may need to account for that. And that's just then looking sort of at the adjustment of how are we going to handle sort of that deficit between what we have saved and then the cost of the vehicle. For those committee members who may have been with us at the purchase, at that time, was there a grant that supported the purchase of this vehicle? Okay.
Yeah, there was a grant, and I don't think the intention was to keep that bus as long as we did. We bought that bus during COVID, and I think it might have been as much as almost 2 years from the time we decided to buy a bus, and we actually got the bus, because like, for example, we had ordered a bus, and then they couldn't get the chassis. It just wasn't made, and that happened to a lot of people. And so, yeah, we had to wait longer than what we wanted to before we actually got the bus.
So with that, I'm wondering if this is put into 2029 with the anticipation that there could be a 1 to 2 year delay, like between ordering and purchasing?
Yeah, and hopefully now it wouldn't be that bad.
Okay.
But there will be probably a delay from the time a
Okay.
bus is ordered till we get one. And also, can I ask about this? When I'm looking at this first slide here, it shows the reserves, and then it shows bus replacement 2029. Well, if we actually did it in 2029, wouldn't those reserves go down to 0 for 2030?
So as I think I responded to you in your email, what we've only done is showing a forecasting of funding going into the reserves and where the reserves will stand. And then we placed where we saw, and this is because we're trying to understand the history of this committee and the history of the finances being done. We just showed the capital forecasting, what the major expenses would be. Certainly what we will do with the reserves is when we figure out best placement for, is then yes, you would show that funding going into the reserves. That's why we showed them together. So you can see where we anticipate your reserve levels to be by 2029, which is at the 79,000 or almost 80,000. However, that's the time of which you were predicting a purchase of a vehicle. However, like I said, I think we are going to go back and do a little bit of research about when the best return would be as far as kilometers on a vehicle of that type, and when we should be best placing this for purchase. I am thinking that it would be closer out to the 8 to 10 year mark. If we were to take the vehicle we have at 400,000, that would be placing us out at 15, but I think that's too long for a vehicle just on wear and tear of the rest of the vehicle. So does that answer your question, to understand how really this is just to show you a forecasting of where the reserve will sit if we were to continue to make the same annual contributions to the reserve as we have in the budget?
Okay, and so if we approve, I do notice down in the last slide, it's showing a proposed increase from $8 to $9 per trip.
So the 2026 fee schedule, this is the schedule that was last, I think, presented to this board. I noted in the history of some of the conversations, I believe last year the board chose not to do a fee increase. And so this, again, this is showing the schedule increase that was before the board before. And then it would be conversations with the board to probably give me direction as to what you would like to see with fees. We made an assessment on revenue from ridership or trips per use, sort of based on what we have historically collected. And that would have been at the current 2025 rate. If you were to increase your fees, then you would see an increase in your revenues. However, you also have to account for at what point does that trip not become cost effective for the user, and then you have user drop off. So it is a bit of a balance and a challenge. You also have to understand then recognizing that somewhere in the next 6 to 8 years, the conversation comes to purchase of a new vehicle and making sure we have healthy reserves in order to cover the cost of that vehicle. If there is a deficit, we had a conversation and we will continue the conversation is how is that deficit accounted for in order to do a purchase of the vehicle. So there's a balance between making sure we're bringing in revenues to support the service and all costs to deliver the service, but a balance then between what is then affordable for those who use the service. So that's why all of this is draft, and for me to come here and have conversations with this committee to best understand what adjustments may or may not need to be made. So that schedule was before you before. I didn't make any changes, just to understand previous conversations.
Okay, does anybody have any questions for Robin on the budget or proposed budget?
I have one.
Yeah, Don?
Yeah, when they fuel up, do they mark the mileage down? The reason is that I did just like to know what the average is every time they fuel up.
You're just wanting to know what
The average per kilometer.
I can certainly go back and investigate that information. They do a lot of recording as to where they pick up and their time and kilometers driven. So I can look to see if they account for fuelage at that time.
Well, I know, well, that's what happened with Johnson. Sand and gravel, they mark it down, and I think your employees would do the same with your equipment here.
I could ask if you could move your microphone closer. I can see people sort of leaning in, so I'm not sure everyone online can hear you.
Sorry.
The track on the mileage.
Mileage.
Richard, could you turn yours on as well? Thanks.
It's just keeping the track on the mileage that
Yeah.
they're doing and the consumption of gas they use.
That's right.
I will certainly investigate that for you to see if that's a calculation that we have historically been minding on the vehicle.
That's fine, thanks.
Yeah, I can't, at this moment, like I had mentioned, we are just really digging into this file right now to best understand. I do see their weekly timesheets. I see they track kilometers and usage. I can see sort of their time and the information where they spend and where they are and how they spend their time. I will, this week when I'm doing that, I will also take note to see if they track fuelage consumption or note. We can also look at the vehicle itself, if the vehicle is also calculating or reporting what they are getting
It could be.
liters per kilometer. Okay.
Thank you.
Does anybody else have any questions on the budget or, for example, on increasing the one-way trip from $8 to $9? Philip?
Yes, hi, through the chair. Just a few questions. I know I'm the newest member on this committee. When we purchased the current bus, was it brand new or did it have mileage on it? Also, I know we say new bus, the 150,000. Is that going to be for a brand new one with 0 mileage, or are we looking at a used one?
It was a brand new bus.
Thank you.
From the best of my understanding, it was a brand,
I
it
think
was a brand new bus.
Yeah, and I think the company we bought it from is called Girardin. Used to be Bluebird, which is, where's that, up near Aylmer?
Tiltonburg, yeah,
Ilsenburg? Okay.
there he is.
John? Did.
I've seen some conversations going back and forth around the cost, and there are some cost changes and their delivery. So yes, my understanding is because the bus right now, actually, we were quite surprised at how low the kilometers are on it, knowing that it's being used every day. But we also have to remember with this service, there is idle time. The drivers deliver our residents to the services that they are attending to, particularly if they're going to adult day program, then they may wait. So it's not that bus is in constant motion. A lot of the time they are waiting in order to do a return trip.
Thank you.
Any other questions on the budget? I don't know, John, you just got here, you? Okay, I've gone back to the other email where the agenda is and budget discussion. So are we looking then for a motion to approve the budget?
If this committee is fine with the budget as it is drafted, then we can make a motion. If you have any changes, I put it in draft. And again, that is because we are also wanting to best understand sort of the direction of this committee and the services that it provides. And so this was in draft form. If you are okay with the budget as it is drafted, you can approve. What I would like to have is though some conversation around the cost of the sort of the fees and the fee structure. If the fee structure was to increase, we could anticipate to have higher revenue. We could also anticipate that the revenue may not change. And that may be getting some feedback from our community participants within this committee to best understand the understanding of our users and our riders. It is a balance, though, that we don't want the service to be underfunded in that then the cost to fund the service then is borne by your local municipalities. But overfunded, you have an impact on. So I wish I could advise you more, but it may just be some fuller conversation with this committee.
So I think it does say in the report, if we went from $8 to $9, that's a 13% increase, but we didn't have an increase at all last year. So if you average it over 2 years, it's 6.5% a year, which is still, a lot more than the inflation rate, but Don?
Yes, we had an increase outside service by $2 or $10. And special trips by $10 too. Because I made that as a motion last year, I remember that. And we left the single ridership at $8.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think we could go with another dollar on the single ridership. That's my only opinion on that. I know it's getting up there in price. But so is new buses and
And like, when they pay the $8 or $9, whatever it is, like I'll see that Four Counties Transit bus stopped at the grocery store in Glencoe or stopped at the drugstore. Can they pay $8 or $9, whatever it happens to be, and in that same trip get more than one stop, like stop at the drugstore, stop at the grocery store? I was assuming that because otherwise, if you had to pay $8 or $9, and which if return it's $18. If you're just going to the grocery store, that's a lot of money. But if you're using it to stop at the drugstore and the grocery store and maybe somewhere else,
I will get a confirmation, but I am making the assumption that it is like per use as opposed to per destination. I think much like if you were to drive the TTC, right, you would get your chit to move to the next
Yeah.
bus.
and there must be some limit. I know we had a discussion at a previous meeting, because somebody used it to go out to a restaurant and the bus waited while the person was in the restaurant and so on. And so there's got to be something in the terms of reference that kind of controls that.
And I think we'll get into that conversation in our other business, making sure we really are defining what the service is for. My understanding is the service was to support those who needed transportation, but specifically around sort of medical needs and sort of daily activities. I don't know if the best usage of the bus is for someone to go to a restaurant and have our bus drivers standing there, but I do understand that when we are delivering them to a program at like the Four Counties Hospital, it's not cost efficient for them to then come back home and then go back to Newberry. They wait at that time. So I think that will have to be clearly defined. I will have further conversations with the drivers to make sure to understand if they're still seeing a demand of people wanting, and I know the fullness of life for daily activities, but then it is a balance between them that's not being available for someone else. So I think we do need to understand what the priorities of service would be.
Thank you, through the chair. So I do recall, and I want to say late 2024, it may have been, now that you mentioned that, there was a trip that happened that the person tied up the bus driver for a majority of the day. So I do believe the idea was that a policy was going to be started. I'm not sure where Magda started or ended up with that, but between Robin and myself, we can possibly do some digging online to see if anything had been started, bringing a policy back that just indicated that there was only so many stops that the bus driver would make per person to eliminate that happening again. Because that trip also resulted in overtime hours for the bus driver as well. It was quite a lengthy day. So I made note of that, and I'll see if I can find something and send that over to Robin so we can.
So are there any more comments on our budget discussion, or like, do people seem to be okay with the budget as presented? And if so, I guess we could have a motion to accept the budget.
And then understanding I think my real one is around sort of your fees. If you're fine with the increases, these are the increases that were proposed to you last year. As I said, I know that you ended up changing keeping steady the 2025 fees, but if this board has appetite to increase those fees, then we can implement those for 2026.
Is someone prepared to make a motion to accept the budget as presented? Moved by John Wright. Do we have a seconder for that? Seconded by Richard Leithorn. Any discussion? More discussion on the budget?
Mark?
Oh, go ahead, Don.
Yeah, so that's leaving it at 2025 or the increase?
I think that would be, as presented, would be, it's shown in the presentation that we would be going from $8 to $9 for a single trip.
Okay.
So it's just $18 return. Those in favor? Anybody opposed? It's carried then. Now the next item on the agenda is the meeting schedule. And I guess you've all had a chance to look at that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this is just presented, starting a little bit later in March for 2026. It's typically because things are not quite ready yet in January, the year end. This will just give staff a little bit more time, and then also structuring it so we're avoiding meetings in July and August, which are typically vacation months for staff and for council. So attendance is a little bit lower. So we would start with March 9th as it would give our year end for 2025, June 8th, first quarter, September 14th, second quarter, November 9th would be presentation of the budget, and that would also wrap up with 2026 being an election year. That would be the last meeting of this term. And then also December 14th for the third quarter. So one thing I would like to ask the board that I didn't include in my report is possibly a little bit later start time just for staffing purposes, even if it is a 9 o'clock start. It would help tremendously. So that of course that's up to the board, but just asking if possibly a 9 o'clock start would be doable for the board. So if any members of the board or the committee have any questions, certainly I can try to answer my best.
Any questions on the meeting schedule? Or on the start time? Because as it stands now, it'll still be 8:30 unless we change it to 9. If you wanted to move the meeting schedule and 9 a.m. start in the same motion, that would be fine.
I could do the motion as amended instead of as presented with the 9 a.m. start time.
Okay,
I can make it.
just use your mic too. So that-
I can make it that we make it to move it till 9 o'clock for starting time.
I'd second that.
And seconded by Richard Leithorn. Those in favor of the meeting schedule and the new start time? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going back to the next item. The next item is 6.4, 2026 chair and vice chair. But I did notice at the end of this agenda package, we have a terms of reference, which is from what year, Robin?
Terry, I believe it was 2018,
2018 or 2019. I'm not 100% sure, but
So I was noticing in the terms of reference, I think we need to update that because it says under membership composition and responsibilities, it says the Four Counties Transit Committee will be composed of 6 voting members, consisting of 2 members from Southwest Middlesex Council, 2 members of West Elgin Council, and 2 members of the public. Well, I've been on this committee for a few years now. John's on the committee representing Chatham-Kent. Clyde's on representing Newberry. they're not included in this membership composition and responsibilities. And then 2 members of public, I'm assuming that would be 1 person from the Adult Day Program in Newbury and 1 person from the West Elgin Health Clinic. But maybe that should be actually specified in the membership in the terms of reference too. So I just like the feeling of the committee. Should we put off electing a chair and vice chair until the March meeting after we've re-examined who's actually on the committee before we elect a chair and vice chair? I mean, what are your thoughts on that? Because John's the vice chair, according to these terms of reference, he's not on the committee. So, any comments on that? And the staff would be okay with re-examining the terms of reference and presenting that to us?
So I had a bit of a conversation with those who were here before. We have also found out that since this terms of reference, and I believe the last term of council, there was starting to have a conversation around a development of a contract between municipalities, just to sort of solidify responsibilities around liabilities and financial obligations. And I think there was some conversations, and then there were some deaths and there were some family issues, and then a bus got purchased, and then I believe the election happened and that contract sort of sat. And so that may be why this terms of reference wasn't updated, because the contract may have sort of preceded that. So we certainly can, between now and March, clean up this language and also clean up that contract, and maybe speak with your respective administrations for your communities. And then certainly by March, we can have those terms of reference probably in a better standing order. For anyone who may have been on the board in the previous term of council, do you remember the contract or any of those discussions? We're just going by what we find in the file and what we dig up. So we thought we'd bring it here just to make sure we can hear some conversations so we best understand. We don't want to make an assumption on what we're reading.
And I would be willing to put my name in as chair for the next year. So I guess if it's okay, would somebody like to make a motion? We defer electing a chair and vice chair until the March meeting after we've seen the new terms of reference. And that's Clyde, moved by Clyde. Do we have a seconder for that? Seconded by, I'm sorry, I can't.
Jenna denies.
Jenna, yeah. Seconded by Jenna. I saw her hand first, Philip. So any more discussion on that? Those in favor? Anybody opposed? I guess everybody's in favor. Carried. Thank you. Additional business.
For that contract, but I think we've already covered that.
Yep. So we did have a noted additional business was around the idea and the concept of the contract that we noted had started in, I believe, 21, 22. So we will bring that contract back up, dust it off, look at it, and then we'll reach out to the administrative bodies of respective municipalities and continue that conversation. And at the same time, we will then update our terms of reference for this committee and have those ready for this one, hopefully before March, so we can start to have some maybe dialogue back and forth so it's ready to go before the March meeting.
And I think from Southwest Middlesex, Dawn and I were both appointed for the full term of council. So we'll be the 2 that are on the 4 Counties Transit Committee from Southwest Middlesex for 2026. Is that the way the other municipalities do it too? Do you get elected or appointed for the full term of council?
It's a volunteer.
Okay, you
You have to volunteer to do it, so it's not.
don't get voluntold?
No, it's just a ask to do it, and that's all it is. And do we still have a representation from the office in Chatham,
We
Kent?
do, it's Jan Metcalf. and
Yeah.
the town.
Oh, okay.
But that's not, I don't believe that's a voting position?
No.
No, she's a staff
We-
position?
Yeah, like our other committees are appointed committees. This is just a volunteer committee. So
Okay,
I'm on two of them, and yeah, 'cause nobody else would do it.
well, thank you for serving.
And I believe from West Elgin, just with the changeover within our municipality, that Councillor Sousa and Mayor Leatham now will be for the duration of the term. And Clive is from Newbury?
Yes,
Correct. And it's a volunteer as well.
yeah, so that's another thing, like West Elgin gets 2, Southwest Middle gets 2, but Newbury and Chatham Kent have, well, the way we've been running it, you've had 1 representative each. And then we've had
It
1
may be proportionate use.
proportionate to the
It may be
usage, I
propor-
think.
That's all I'm saying. It may be proportionate to use. So I will look at what Newbury is at. Having
Yeah.
said that.
And is there any other new business? Well, short meeting then, I guess. If there's just like to wish everybody a happy Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And I'll see you in March. Are we ready for a motion to adjourn? Moved by Richard, seconded by Linda. Those in favor? Carried. Thank you.